Good morning, America. Just kidding. Oh man. Yeah. Uh, hey everybody. I'm feeling pretty good right now. Just want to let you guys know that off the bat. It's a good day. It's a beautiful day. I guess we should look at every day as a beautiful day, but it's been a good one. Charlie, how you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great, man. I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling good off of the vibe that you're giving out. So it's like, all right,
Putting it out there, man.
hell yeah, and I'm
It's
catching
in
it.
the air. It's in the air, man. I'm trying to put this positive energy out into the world. I I was guest on a panel discussion today about rum. Shout outs to the event. It was called Gimme Brown. It was a digital offering for the food and beverage industry. There was also actually dope stuff going on. Basically, I was on the same like live stream as Ninth Wonder, who was like
Oh
the
snap!
yeah, who like DJ'd like the ending set for the thing. So I was like, damn, I could put that on like my LinkedIn and be like, once spoke at event where Ninth Wonder was.
Hey, he's been
Um,
doing Instagram stuff the whole time, right?
has he?
Like,
I don't know.
I think so. I'm not
I'm
sure.
sure. I'm sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a gather digital gathering of people tuning in to hear dope discussions about the spirits industry. The panel that I was on was myself. It was moderated by Mary Pollock. She's a Filipino bartender, Filipino woman bartender out of San Jose. Um, I was on there with Zan Kong, who is the one of, I believe, a partner in Worthy Park Rums and Worthy Park Distillery, which is based out of Jamaica. And then Ian Burrell, who is the only global rum ambassador in the world. He's out of London. And then Capri Robinson, who bartender extraordinaire, Santa Teresa rum um, ambassador, I believe. And then the creative director of organization called Chocolate City's Best, which celebrates black bartenders in the DC area, but they're out of the DC area. God, I feel like I talked for a long time at that point. It was a dope ass discussion, man. So I came out of it feeling good because the responses were super great. It was a discussion about not necessarily rum and production, but the culture and political aspects of rum, cultural and political aspects of rum when it comes to like the production and the history of slave trade involved in rum production and rum trade. What that should mean in terms of how we interact with rum as a spirits category. Um, a lot of the political aspects of different marginalized groups within rum, but how the history of rum has allowed for there to be a huge diversity or a diverse group of people leading the conversation about rum. And then we talked about tiki, which I have a interesting relationship with. Um, and I feel like I walked in, I digitally walked in there and kind of shut shit down on that last person talking about tiki
Hey,
with like a mic drop. So I'm feeling good. Just
sick.
the energy's been good, man. It was an interesting thing. So shout out to Radical Exchange, Ashton Berry, Kasira Hill, and everybody involved with that team in terms of organizing. It was like 500 people on that live stream, which is more people than I've ever spoken in front of digitally or virtually or not.
Hey, how does that work for you? Like when you're doing like an Instagram live thing or something else like that, and then you start seeing the comments pop up and there's all the little waves and all the little shout outs and shit. How do you like I feel rude not saying something. At the same time, I also feel like, bro, I'm having a conversation. I can't like respond. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, this was on a platform called Hopin, which is, I guess, like similar to Zoom, but they can hold more people, and it was like an 8 hour thing. So I didn't pay attention to comment section. I wasn't really looking at it until towards the end.
Beneath you.
Um, Never. I'm a man of the people.
Nice.
It's just, yeah, I don't know. I just didn't ever think I was really engaged with the conversation that we were having because there was some serious rum professionals in the house, and the conversation was great all the way around. The whole day was great. The whole day of offerings, I tuned in for the most part. Conversations about coffee and about whiskey and the history of those within black and brown communities or black and indigenous people of color communities. Um, some dope like DJ sets in between, some educational cooking and like cocktail creation stuff. So it was dope, man. It was a dope time. It was kind of a party in a virtual party in there for a second. Felt like I was in the future. Um, what is your week been like, brother?
Dude, I wish it was as eventful as that, man. You seem to be having a super fun time. I got tested for COVID-19. That was probably the most excitement I've had.
Important.
Important. I mean, no, it is. It's definitely important, but it's just it ain't a virtual party with Ninth Wonder and rum, you know.
Yeah, I know it's true.
I'm super interested in what you're saying. Like, just there's so much that's gone into that, right? So much history, so many different cultures that have been a part of that. Like you were saying, from the slave trade and everything else. So I'm about to watch that video. I imagine it's been recorded already, or
Yeah, but I don't know if they're releasing it for like public consumption across the board. I have no idea. I'll tap in with Ashton and see. But I know honestly there are a bunch of people that weren't able to like attend live, especially within the like beverage industry.
Yeah,
that want live video or want video posted for later viewing. But I don't know if that's gonna happen. They haven't told us.
Shit. Well, I guess I'll just have to like pick your brain the whole time.
Yeah. What are you?
Tell me more.
Sure. What are you drinking right now? Are you drinking?
Yeah, I'm drinking Cab and I'm drinking water because of you.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Drink a lot of water.
Dude,
Somebody commented today in the chat that's one comment that I did see there. Like, damn, Sam has a big ass glass of water. Probably gonna drop some game. I was like,
was everybody
you need water? Hydrate, man.
Was everybody else just drinking the whole time, the entire time?
Yeah, for the most part, I think everybody was like drinking a rum or like a rum cocktail. I was just drinking tea and water.
Wow.
So, life is about balance, Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
Life's about balance. Everything in moderation, even moderation. That's who is that? Whose quote is that?
Oh, that's what's his name?
I forget who it is. I know it's somebody. But yeah, how was the COVID testing? Uncomfortable? Was it the nose one?
Yeah, so apparently they do different ones, right? I just kind of found out about that because a friend of mine, I got 3 friends that have gotten tested now. And just to be safe and in case we decide, yo, let's chill, let's kick it, just want to be sure that we're safe. We're about to have social intercourse. You know what I mean? So we gotta be testing each other.
Yeah.
So the one that myself, my wife, and my other friend got, it was cotton swab up both nostrils, and then down your throat with a different one. It wasn't that bad. I mean, I thought it was gonna be worse. I mean, I guess I'm thinking that is the most extensive test that they have, and it wasn't crazy bad. You know what I mean? It's a little uncomfortable. I think the best part about it is the interactions, because when my friends went, there was they said there was no cars in line. It was right before the rise of the tests, or I'm sorry, the rise of the cases. And we went yesterday, and it was a 3-hour long wait for the same place that they went to when there was no one. Same time too. But the most fun I had was knowing that there was a lot of cars after me and a lot of cars before me, and being able to kind of interact with people that are gonna take the test, and then those that are watching me take the test. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of like, just like faces and interactions, just to kind of have it, and having them respond back was, the most interaction that I've had in a minute. So
interaction, man, it's important.
Right.
That's crazy. I mean, for me, because I was locked in the house for a while, but being back to work now for a few weeks has kind of exposed me back into the world. Honestly, like, it feels good. I'm sure you're kind of itching to get back to certain things too. But it is a different world we live in, man. Like the last episode I talked about what we thought the industry was going to look like moving forward, but that's before like my restaurant opened its doors again. And now since I've been back, it's like certain things that you have to remember, but are easy to forget,
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's been a transition for everybody, not just for us on the serving side, obviously, but also for people who are coming through the doors to get used to. Like right now we're doing, everything is outside dining. All tables are 6 feet apart. So there's no real eating inside. We're sanitizing like any like pens like that you use to sign receipts, where we put those into a sanitizer bucket, and then so everything when we're not reusing anything. That's the thing that weirds people out right now. Is like we're not using glass and plates and stuff. We're just using to go containers, so that we're not reusing anything, because we still don't know if like the dishwasher and or the sanitizer in like a dishwasher kills COVID or anything. And I know like there's differing opinions about like how it spreads, but we're just trying to be as safe as possible, because as we see in places like New York, or not New York, Florida and Texas, that bars that reopened maybe like a month ago or less are having to close again because of huge spikes. So really, like, I think there's a lot of us in Oakland that are just trying to prevent that. So taking every precautionary step to make sure at the end of the day we can keep the doors open and steady income for the staff that is back in the house. So yeah, I think we're going into this a little earlier than we thought we were, but it's been a crazy time, man. It's been crazy the last couple weeks getting back and feeling it out. Any thoughts about like that whole Florida Texas situation? Your thoughts on it all?
Yeah, man. Like I get that people want to go back to normal, because I want to go back to normal too. But I mean, this shit's just way too new to kind of keep moving forward as if, because once we go back, I think we try to let our guard down as a way of feeling normal again, right? And and I was asking you the other day, I think I texted you and I was like, "Yo, how are things with masks wearing over there?" Because I know when it comes to my shop, well, not shit. I shouldn't say my shop, because I can't speak for what happens in the shop, but I can speak for myself when I go back to the shop.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a couple of barbers that I follow on Instagram that are, I look up to them, and some of them are super pro-choice on whether wearing a mask or not. And I think my opinion is that's a right that you have, but I think that is a little bit irresponsible. Because like we just don't know, man, and whether you think that you don't care about getting sick, or you don't think you're gonna get sick, I still feel like wearing the mask is not for you. It's for some. It's like wearing a condom, bro. It's literally just kind of protecting others.
Hey, man, there are a lot of people out there that
Right.
don't
I know. I feel it.
don't want to wrap it up.
I feel it. And so I wanted to ask you on, and I know you've only been back for a little bit, but how do you feel? Do you think that people are gonna be like, is there a little bit of machismo, thinking, I don't need to wear this thing all the time, I could just take it off? Or how does that?
Not even machismo, man. Like most of I don't want to like. I guess I don't want to. But no, but from my observation, most men have been okay with it. It's kind of been more of a Karen situation than like a machismo situation, with the ones that don't want to do it are like, I hate to say it. I mean, I guess I don't hate to say it, but it is what it is. Like most of them have been, middle-aged white women that are like, ugh, I have to wear a mask.
Oh, coming in time to the shop.
Well, yeah, you have to wear a mask. Like you have to. Our rule is you have to wear a mask whenever you're inside, and then whenever you're interacting with one of the team members.
Staff. Yeah.
If you're at your table with like your own people, then that's cool. We're not requiring people to wear masks when they're outside dining the whole time. Obviously you have to eat, right? So I don't know. It's like when people are walking back inside the restaurant to use the bathroom, and we remind them like, hey, you have to have a mask on. They're like, ugh. Well, most of that, but there hasn't been any real pushback on it. I think most people, especially we're in like liberal ass Bay Area, so
yeah,
most people are cool with it. And I mean, I am of the same opinion. Like, regardless of what you feel is like your right, and I mean, it is, I guess, your right to not wear a mask. You still get a ticket or whatever, but I agree, man. Like, it's just a mask.
Yeah.
I saw like a meme the other day. What was it? It was like a wrestling meme. I used to be a big wrestling fan. And it was like, I forget what wrestler it is. It was like Rey Mysterio, and like they were like, Rey Mysterio has worn a mask for like 25 years. You can wear a mask.
It was a big deal when he took the mask off.
I know. I'm like, damn, that's true.
Yeah.
These luchadors be wearing masks like damn near 365 days a year for 40
and we
years.
saw the same. There was like a meme about like a seatbelt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, just be safe, bro. It's really not that big of a deal. I'm into fashion and style, so I think, yo, man, get this thing flashy, make it look sick. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I'm trying to have it coordinate with my outfit.
No, I feel it.
So
Anybody who can do that, more power to you. I'm like super someone. I'm basketball short flip flops and like a tank top. That's what I
yeah,
prefer. Honestly, I prefer to live life with my shirt off, but you gotta wear shirts places apparently. Um,
no
but
shirts, no shoes, no mask, no service.
I got some clean masks. I got some like my lady, my wife bought me a paisley mask that I rock
Sick,
regularly. So
sick.
I ain't got no like these other fools with their Louis Vuitton and like
Yeah,
like you know I ain't got no Louis Vuitton mask. More power to you if you do though.
yeah. Now, man,
Uh,
I think it's just it sucks, right? Because you want people to feel normal again, but it's not gonna happen this year. And I think that, and I worry too. I don't know about how you feel because I'm not sure if they're gonna start shutting bars down or where you're working at necessarily. But for me, I'm like, are we even gonna ever open up by the end of this year? Only because if we don't open up by July, August, I hope September. After that, that's when like flu season starts to hit, right? So I doubt they're gonna open up at that point if it's not now, you know.
well, do you know like of there's only a few California counties that haven't allowed uh, bar or barbershops to reopen, right?
Yeah,
Alameda County being one of them. But
correct.
I know a lot in Southern California, and I'm sure in the Valley and up north, I'm sure a lot of places are open.
Hmm.
Is it just really like Bay Area counties?
It seems like it. I think it's Bay Area counties and probably like straight up Los Angeles, like that straight area. Um, so basically, very condensed or heavy
Yeah.
populated areas, you know. Um, yeah, that's kind of it. I know Contra Costa opened up, but I'm pretty sure I think they're suggesting that they start dialing it back a little bit, which makes sense. You know, I just feel like, look, if you want this thing to go back to normal, you feel uncomfortable wearing a mask, just put it on. In the meantime, the more you do it, the faster that we get back to things going and rocking. You know,
Hundred
we're just
percent.
at this time. I think the first time we were buying time for the hospital beds and the vacancy, ventilators, and masks, and now I think we're buying time for a vaccine to get here so that we can kind of rock this thing. But
Yeah.
even that, people aren't going to want to put on to do the vaccine. So
There's a lot of anti-vaxxers out there, man. There's a
yeah,
lot of anti-vaxxers out there.
I'm
But
with like
I mean,
skipping the first batch. I'm like,
I'm,
let's...
for me, I'm very libertarian in a lot of ways, in the sense of like, you know, you live your life how you want to live it. If you're not hurting anybody, I believe in that for the most part, not completely. Like I do believe everybody has um, some sort of responsibility to society as a whole, to the society that they operate in as a whole, and to taking care of others. But for the most part, I'm like, yeah, if you. That's why I think the seatbelt thing is a little bit more personal. Like I don't want you to die, but if you want, like, if you're okay with that situation and taking that risk, like I get it. Like I
yeah,
don't want that for you,
yeah.
but at the end of the day, um, but so there's things that I fall on that side with, um, but yeah, I don't know. I think everybody should wear a mask and take all precautions just because they're easy. Like it's not really a hindrance to your life
Mm-hmm.
to just do the thing, man. It's it's easy in a lot of ways.
I like that Gavin Newsom calls it like a non-pharmaceutical, I guess, preventative. You know what I mean? Which I'm like, all right, yeah. If you think about it like that, it's either that or some sort of drugs. And I'm not into taking kind of pills or anything else like that. So to me, I'm like, yeah, if this helps, I'm down for it.
That's true, man. I just enjoy me some good trees recreationally from time to time. Everything else, I'm not really on that train.
Same.
Um, you kind of mentioned, um, well, I imagine for you guys it's going to elongate the period of time before reopening. For us, there's a real threat of like closing it back down just because other places have, and like the spike in the Bay Area has been super huge, especially in Alameda County and Oakland. Um, I know, I know that apparently I don't know What the thing is. I know, like I said, a lot of bars are closing in Florida and Texas. Alameda County sent out kind of a warning. I don't know if you guys saw that, or I don't know if you saw it, Charlie. Mikey's not in Alameda County, but there's like just a warning email out to people and businesses, like, hey, you have to take this serious. There's been an uptick in cases, so please make sure everybody is wearing a mask and everybody that comes into your establishments. It was basically like, get it fucking together, guys. Let's get this shit. Let's take this shit serious, or we're all gonna have to shut down again. We don't want that, but if that's what we have to do, you know.
Yeah.
So I think from a business owner standpoint, I haven't really. I mean, I'm sure there are business owners who are like, "Fuck that, don't wear a mask." I've seen some of that from other areas in the Bay Area. I haven't really seen much. I don't know. I tend to believe in the Bay Area in a lot of ways. Sometimes it lets me down, but most of the time,
Nobody's perfect.
it's true.
But I do appreciate the majority of what the Bay Area tries to do. Like I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. You know what I mean? And with that, Alameda County as well. Like specifically Alameda County. So I dig it.
I'm just about the culture, man. I'm about the culture big time. It's funny on the thing today. You know, we kind of identified ourselves coming in and introducing ourselves. You know, what your ethnic background is, what your pronouns are, what your sexual preference is, and then
damn, that's what everybody had to go through to.
Yeah. I mean, I dig it. I mean, I dig the disruption of like, you know, the disruption of centering white, hetero, cis, you know, centering like just that group in a lot of these conversations. So I appreciate it. But I also have to throw in there, you know, I'm just culturally West Coast, man, and all the way. So I don't know. I love it, man. I love California up and down.
That's
and we
interesting.
Why is that?
Well, no, because I feel the same way. Like, you know, I was born in Mexico, and so my daughter was asking me, like, you know, tell me more about our culture and everything else. But being born in Mexico and then growing up over here, as an immigrant, there was a lot of times where I was not supposed to say that I was born in Mexico, right, for fear of deportation, and because of that, and not just because of that, but also because I also was brought up very Christian, and so I didn't listen to worldly music. I didn't listen to like Vicente Fernandez or anything else like that growing up, and it was just like Christian Spanish songs, and so there's been a little bit of a detachment from me and the traditional Mexican culture, right? A lot of Mexican culture revolves around Catholicism, and that wasn't me. And so, but I grew up, you know, listening into all West Coast shit, Pac. I grew up really idolizing Malcolm X. He's right here behind me. I grew up just like really into this whole thing, and so and different types of art that wasn't traditionally Mexican art. It wasn't like I was trying to say no Mexican art, but I just grew up in California, all over LA to the Bay, and so it's interesting that we now have an option to an option to identify as a culture other than what you were destined to by where you were born.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
So,
I'd be lying. Like that's the hard part about identifying like ethnically at times for me, because I'm like, man, I feel like it's so much more than that from a cultural standpoint. Because like culturally, like I'm like, man, like more so than anything, I feel like I'm a Californio, you know, like I'm like this is the soil, you know. And so in a lot of ways, I just like sometimes feel like, yeah, I am someone, yeah, I am Mexican, but I am part of like the diaspora of Pacific Islanders, right? A good, you know, strong woman within the Polynesian or the Pacific Island Oceanic community. She was the one that kind of dropped that gem on me, that like the diaspora. All right, so like Samoa is very like village like so all these, you take pride in the village that you come from. And she was like, you know, like I didn't have that as much. So the diaspora is my village, and I was like, damn, man, that's some game. The diaspora is my village, because that's a real feeling for me, because I didn't grow up in Samoa, I didn't grow up in Mexico. So the diaspora of both is very much like what has influenced me more so than just Samoan culture. Although I am influenced by Samoan culture as well, especially when it comes to like cultural norms and just passed down habits and responsibilities. But even more so on my Mexican side, I feel like I'm more so influenced by Chicano culture than by Mexican culture. You know?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's kind of where
yeah,
I can't. You know what I mean? Like I don't even know. I feel lost in that sometimes, and I feel lost in that because I'm fluent in Spanish, but because of that fear growing up of deportation, my mom was really into like, yo, let's learn English, and I would teach her how to speak English, and then I stopped speaking Spanish. Not because I didn't know how to speak it. I'm still fluent, but I didn't have as many Latin friends that I wanted. Not that I wanted to, because I wanted to speak Spanish with them the way they were freely speaking Spanish, but we had a different threat. They were born here. There was no real threat in that sense. I wasn't born here. I was like, assimilate. You know what I mean?
It's funny that you say that because like I had referenced a conversation that I was having with my pops, on one of the episodes, and I was talking, to him about just like him being more white passing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of something he brought up was he was like, like some people will attack him for like assimilating to the culture, but he did that as a form of protection for himself because
Mm-hmm.
he emigrated here illegally,
Mm-hmm.
so he forced himself to learn English, and yeah, he has an accent still, but he speaks good English, and and like he has assimilated in a lot of ways from just the professional standpoint too. So it's something he brought up. So it's interesting that you say that because it isn't something that I've always thought about or examined.
Yeah.
Like I remember having like a couple friends when I was growing up that I knew were like undocumented, um, but it's not necessarily something I have to think about all the time because I didn't even look at my dad. I don't even remember what age I was. I know it was a big deal when my dad got his citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I don't really remember how old I was. I just
Yeah.
remember it being a big deal. So I had to be young, maybe between like 4 years old and like 8 years old in that
Right.
range. Because I
Mm-hmm.
still remember in my head like the celebration that like my mom kind of planned for my dad, and then um, so I don't know. I mean, tell me more. I don't know if you're fine kind of sharing your story and that side. Like you don't have to go too much in depth.
I'm about to cry, bro.
But
I'm about to get
yeah,
in deep. No, I'm good.
yeah,
Um, yeah, dude. For me, even the concept of white passing is something that just recently came into my understanding. Because I always saw myself. I was browner than my relatives in Mexico, and some of them, right? They're a lot more European looking.
yeah.
Some of them are blonde, but uh, and growing up in Mexico, if you're darker, you're mi negro is what they call you. You know what I'm saying? And my dad was called that, and my mom was also darker, and so I always thought I was kind of a little bit more on the darker side.
Yeah.
Until I married my wife, and she's half Mexican, half
She was like,
Jewish.
"Fool, you white fool."
Bro, dude, I was editing the last video and I was like, I am blending into the wall. So then I realized, just because my experience of being an immigrant and coming over here, um, identifying as an immigrant, identifying as, all the racial slurs that are being said, because that, they're talking about me, but I just don't happen to look like that. I didn't recognize that I didn't happen to look like what the traditional immigrant looks like. And then I started studying more on and re-examining my own white privilege in this situation. Even though I'm an immigrant, I am still white passing in this situation. So there was a lot of reflection going on this past 2 weeks. I finished that book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. That was pretty solid. A lot of information on that book for me. And just a lot of examination on your own racist ideas that you have, your own kind of things that you've bought into. So yeah, that was dope. But yeah, born in Juarez, excuse me, and then spent some time early on living in LA, and then back to Mexico, and then finally to the Bay. And I grew up here. And I think the hardest part for me, still to this day, is that I do have a lot of Latinx friends that even when I hear you and Miggy and or Mikey talking about these things, like and saying, speaking Spanish sometimes, I'm like, it's like double dutch. Do I jump in? Do I not jump in? Is it awkward for me to do it? Is it not? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of times where I don't know where I fit in at.
Yeah.
And that's just where I'm at.
it's a process, you know. I don't know. For me, I don't speak Spanish fluently. Like in a lot of ways, I can understand. Like I can understand. Like if you speak to me, for the most part, like I'll be able to put it together. Like it
Hmm.
won't always click the complete sentence, but I'll know what you're like saying for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, and then in terms of speaking, nah, I don't even speak close to fluent Spanish. I
You
speak
know, it's
Spanglish. But like, I don't know if it's true. Like a lot of people have told me, especially when I spend more time in Mexico, when I go back down to visit family, like it'll take me like 2 3 days to acclimate myself to like speaking more so.
yeah.
But then after that first 2 3 days, I can speak fairly decently. But there's a lot of people out there like, nah, like you sound like a natural speaker at times. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know if that's just a product of growing up around it, but not necessarily internalizing it a ton, but still knowing enough to get by as a child. Um,
And being comfortable in it too, dude. Like,
yeah,
cause I'm fluent, but I'm not necessarily comfortable, and it will sound different. Like when even the couple words that you say, it's like, oh yeah, no, he's one of them. You know what I mean? Like he's one with them, and I'm literally from there, and I'm like, what is it? But it's funny because so I have two daughters, right?
yeah,
One is she is a beautiful darker caramel color, green eyes, and then my youngest daughter, she is white. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And right now her eyes are gray, slight-ish blue. And I'm like, did I just have a, blue-eyed
yeah.
daughter? Like it's weird. And so for a long time I was like, not that I didn't want to teach them Spanish, because I feel like Spanish is still just another European tongue, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not a
I hear you.
Latin tongue, or it's a Latin of the Latin thing, but it's not of this
It's
side
not
of
an
the Americas.
indigenous like
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And so there was a time where I was like, nah, I mean, like I tell a lot of people that are like, oh, how when they talk about other Mexicans that don't speak Spanish, like, oh, how are you Mexican not speak Spanish? I always say, well, Aztecs didn't speak Spanish either. But like now with my daughter definitely being so white passing, I'm like, okay, I see the importance on why you have to pass on certain languages to identify
yeah,
and to recognize. Because I know that at a few generations down, depending on who she marries, you're gonna lose a lot of your background or where
yeah.
you come from. So I'm like, well, gotta pass
I'm
it on.
scared. I'm scared of it all the time, man. I'm scared of it all the time. I think about it. Like my daughters, both of my daughters have been in Mexico, so they've been able to go back and see family and understand that that's a part of where they come from. Only one of my daughters has been to Samoa without me. She went with my mother when she was really young, but she doesn't really remember it.
Mm.
So I get scared of it, man. I get scared. Like, damn, am I really going to be like the last generation to really fully understand and comprehend that, like, those cultural aspects of myself, right? Because a big part of me, honestly, at times fears like, what happens when my pops passes away and he's not that middle ground between his family and like me or me and my brother. Do we to some degree lose contact? Do we stop going back to Mexico as much? Especially, maybe not, because both of my parents have expressed an interest to, like, when they do pass, knock on wood, I mean, whatever, but when they do pass, to be buried back in their homelands. Like my dad wants to be buried in Mexico, and my mom wants to be buried in Samoa. So maybe because of that, we always have like the
Something to go
attachment of
back to.
going back. My dad has expressed that before. He was like, I want to be buried in Mexico so that you guys never forget. Because honestly, for me, a lot of times I fall closer to my mom's side, to the Samoan side. My dad has expressed that, like, I want to be buried in Mexico because I want you guys to always go back and visit your family. And I know if I'm buried there, that you'll go back to see me. But if I'm not, then, at some point maybe you lose that connection. So it is something that scares me. I think about often, like, damn, man, like, the diaspora is just like I talked about some of the beauty of it, of being its own village at times. Like, there's also cultural loss with it in a lot of ways. And that shit scares the shit out of me. I'm scared right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's we'll see. All I try to do, I've been trying to teach my daughters. My daughters know more Spanish than they do Samoan. Just because my dad tends to speak it more, or my dad's more so. Like, the thing is, like, when my dad's on the phone, he's loud as hell. So when my daughters are around him and he's on the phone speaking Spanish, like, everybody can hear him. But my mom, when she like communicates with people, she's a lot more quiet. So I think they've internalized more Spanish than they have Samoan, especially with my wife being Puerto Rican too. Her being Puerto Rican and her not necessarily being fluent in Spanish and her trying to get more comfortable with it. I think we both practice Spanish with our daughters more so than Samoan. So
How do you
I don't
guys
know.
do that?
Just in terms of like speaking it, like at times we'll try to speak to each other in Spanish or speak to them in Spanish a little bit. We definitely have more, like we don't have any Samoan children's books, but we have a few like Spanish children's books. But I kind of toe on the same line as you in some ways, like fuck Spanish, fuck Spain.
Straight up. They don't
But
love us. They don't give a damn about us.
exactly, if I learn, maybe I'll learn how to speak like Zapotec or something, or figure
I was
out.
thinking about some sort of Nahuatl. So I named my daughter's name is Zaya. Her middle name is Sochi,
Yeah.
for which is Nahuatl or Aztec for flower, and that's because my wife, her grandma, her name was Rosalie. So out of for Rose, it was Sochi, and originally, so there's two different meanings for her name for us. Sochi is representing of her grandma, uh, but the X for me represents the fact that my culture is both indigenous, or that I don't even know it too much.
Yeah.
But it's like I didn't want to have a name that was Spanish. I wanted to have a name that was indigenous, because that's long forgotten for a lot of us. Even if you're in Mexico, right? You take more pride in Mexico sometimes looking European, and doing this, but we don't talk about the indigenous side at all, or not often, and it's usually clowned on probably more often than not. And so originally it was going to be Zaya X Herrera Villar, and the X just stood for the fact that I have huge admiration to Malcolm, and he's shaped my life a lot. And Mexico, the X on that, the Aztec, the whole thing of it. So it was a nod to the multicultural thing that has brought me up. And then it so happened to be that my wife's grandma was named Rosalie, so Sochi.
That's beautiful, man.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. My daughters have two long ass Samoan middle names. Like, and we call one of my daughters, her first name is Santana,
Uh-huh.
but her middle name is Fetuolelangi, which means star in the sky or heaven star, as my mom likes to tell her.
That is beautiful.
But we call her Fetu, which just means star in Samoan. So I think she's more in tune with like I have a Samoan name. I mean, when she's at school now, her friends call her Santana, or like her teacher will call it because that's technically her first name. But we've called her Fetu since the day she was born, pretty much.
That's dope.
Yeah, so it's funny we're talking about like our daughters' names. I tend to always tell people, man, that my daughters I actually posted about it today. About my daughters gave me perspective, but like the reality that they changed my world and they changed the way that I view the world. Before my first daughter was born, even like my second daughter to some degree, it was really my second daughter's birth that I think changed the way I was looking at the world. Not to say that my oldest daughter didn't have an effect on me, but she was still so young. She wasn't yet like reacting to the world. Because my daughters are 20 months apart. But when I had my second daughter and like my oldest daughter started kind of reacting to the world, it gave me this like new perspective of like, fuck. A lot of this like machismo and masculinity that I'm attached to that has been a part of my cultural upbringing, especially within like Chicano culture, Latino culture, even Samoan culture to some degree. A lot of it isn't necessarily like the healthiest thing, and it changed my view on just like trying to be as empathetic as possible and understanding as possible with people and being softer instead of, especially coming from just like where we come from. That like you kind of always feel like, all right, when you're around other dudes, especially like other black and brown dudes, you kind of have to like posture up to like, if not to be like the tough guy in the room, because I don't really think about it as being the tough guy in the room, just like posturing so that like you're not fucking with me, like you know what I'm saying, to be the one that doesn't get fucked with, because you don't necessarily always have to be like the strongest guy in the room, but you definitely don't want to be the weakest guy in the room. But a lot of that shit, like having daughters, really just kind of changed the way that I view the world and view masculinity in a lot of ways. I don't know if it's the same for you or same exact process for you, but what do you think?
Yeah, man. I had my daughter when I was 17, and so there was a whole like I didn't really have a chance to grow into what I was expecting to grow into as a man, and I also didn't have a dad growing up, so it was constantly just trying to figure shit out. All right, I remember actually we were doing a play at Mount Eden where I went to high school at, and there was a line that we all got the opportunity to write into the play of what you want, what is the biggest thing, and the line that I wrote was, I just want my mom to acknowledge me as a man, and I look back on that line now and I was like, hmm, I've been struggling with this thing for a long time of trying to
Yeah,
figure out what it means to be a man, and having a daughter definitely helped me out in that sense. For a long time, I was worried because my mom would teach me how to dance or try to, and I'm like,
yeah,
well, if I learn how to dance from my mom, she's teaching me the way a woman would dance, so I'm dancing like a girl. That was my
yeah.
mentality, right? That was
No,
my
I
thought.
hear you. Yeah,
And then reading the Bible a lot, I started questioning it because it's a very male-oriented book, and so that made me start questioning my faith a little bit more, or at least my approach to it. I may have believed, excuse me, in the Jesus or the stories of it or something like that, but my approach to it definitely changed. And she made me feel, or made me want to just check myself a lot more of what example am I setting. I was definitely running in the streets a lot more during that time, and she, I mean, she gave me a reason to fucking wisen up. You know, don't
get
be a
it
dummy.
together.
Get it
Yeah.
together. If she ends up marrying someone like you,
Oh,
make
shit.
sure.
Fuck.
Ooh.
All right, good.
If she ends up marrying somebody like me, I wanted to make sure that she's proud of somebody that she's
Yeah, I hear
marrying,
you.
and that, if it's a reflection of who I am, shit, you know what I mean. Make sure you leave a good example.
100%.
So
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I attribute a lot to my daughters, and when I posted something today, I said, my daughters gave me perspective, but my wife gave me love. And I think just like the acceptance of another person's love, and like getting past it, like, nah, bruh, you don't gotta be hard all the time. You don't gotta like, this person loves you. You can cry. You know what I'm saying? You can let it out. You can let it go. Was a huge part in it as well, because I consider myself like, there's a lot of discussion right now for the last few years about like toxic masculinity, um, and then a lot of people inversely, being like, oh, masculinity isn't toxic, and getting angry about like the attack on masculinity or on men, right? The same way we see with like, race relations and white people feeling attacked for certain things. And I always just feel like, man, like, you don't have to be ashamed of your masculinity, but you should do everything you can to understand it, and understand when it becomes toxic versus when it becomes, or versus when it's, um, like, I don't know, beneficial to society or beneficial to other people,
yeah,
right? Because I am a person in a lot of senses, that believes in like the polarity of like masculinity versus femininity.
yeah,
And not to say that everybody falls on, you either fall on one side or the other. No, there's definitely like a scale of it, and like, you
hmm
can have
it's like a spectrum,
aspects from, yeah, you can, it's a spectrum, and you can have aspects from both, right?
right? All right.
um but I often, like, I just want to have a conversation oftentimes about masculinity with, especially with other men that are like,
Yeah.
well, I consider myself masculine presenting, like I'm not afraid of that.
hmm
But at the same time, I know that like, that pervading thought of like having to prove your masculinity has
hmm
put me in situations that aren't the most healthy for myself or healthy for people that I've affected or people around me. um I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Hell yeah. Um, yeah. No, just for me, it's been an interesting thing. I was a lot more hot headed growing up, but at the same time, I wasn't, like we talked about last time. I'm not a super strong cat, but I was definitely a little bit more fiery on things. But I also realized early on that I was a little bit better at being diplomatic, where I can talk my way out of things, or I would
That's a Taurus thing. That's a Taurus thing. Shout out Taurus gang.
hey, and so like there was a lot of times where I diffused fights between myself and somebody else or other people that are fighting. If especially if it was two Latinos fighting, I'm stopping that. Right? There
Yeah.
was a lot of that happening for me. Um, but I'm not. Yeah, it's always been tough for me because I'm not super like big, you know, and uh, and I was talking to my wife about this the other day where I was like, there's certain features of her, like the way that she handles herself and the way that I handle myself. I sometimes feel like I have more of the, and I don't know if I was because I was brought up by women, but I'm more on. Sometimes I could be more on the women's side of the spectrum, and on the way that I think. And I'm not sure if that's just for being diplomatic and not being as physically aggressive. Although I am definitely still very hot headed and aggressive. You know what I
Tourist
mean?
thing.
For
Tourist
sure.
thing.
But it's dude, it's such a weird thing to navigate, right? On what does it mean? And ultimately, I mean, for me, it's for being a man. Oh, real quick, and I was writing down as you were saying, masculinity isn't toxic, and I feel like we all play roles in our relationship, right? It's not like there's a defined role that a man needs to be this and a woman can only be that. No, but there is a role that you play as a team of what's going on.
100%.
And I think that, you know, because we're moving in a world where, we're not cavemen, we're not fighting, we're not constantly having to protect each other anymore. I don't need a gun, although I want one.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
Mikey
but,
hit that.
but
We'll talk
like,
about it after.
okay, but like at the end of it, there's a part of me where like, well, I need to have a strap to protect my family. I need to do this, and then you check yourself and realize, well, one, there's probably a higher rate of suicide for men that have guns in the first place. Two, you're probably bringing more of a danger to your household. And three, are you really ever going to use that gun to protect yourself, or is there a higher chance of your house getting broken into and taking your gun, and then more damage being done? But I still feel that, well, but I need to take care of my family because my job is to provide and protect. And so now it's changing. What does that mean? Is that protecting your family financially? Is that protecting your family with your health? So many other things go into that it's just a thing to navigate, man. It's just a thing to find out.
Process, man, as everything is, it's funny you talk about that because, I constantly think about the spectrum of femininity versus masculinity. I mean, my wife and I talk about it all the time. In some ways, she's like stereotypically more masculine. I fucking can never decide. This is gonna be like people view it as like a stereotype, and it is a stereotype, right? But I can never decide where I want to eat. Like, I'm very indecisive in a lot of ways. And the like quote unquote stereotypically masculine trait is to be more decisive in a lot of things. But my wife tends to be the one that's a lot more decisive when deciding or making decisions on certain things. So there definitely is a spectrum, and like especially within relationships, if you want a healthy relationship, if you want a relationship where you can both thrive as individuals in as well as like a collection of people, then it's all about understanding like polarities across multiple different categories and like the spectrum across multiple different categories, and being fine with you expressing like your own quote unquote femininity, or like the stereotypical sides of that, right? Especially within cultures that have been more toxic in terms of pushing masculinity to the forefront of identity. Motherfucker, I couldn't like figure out how to cry without the help of my wife at times. And not to say that that's a feminine trait, because it's not, but sometimes you just have to embrace like people showing you a different way, people showing you different things that can ultimately benefit you in your relationship with yourself. Because if you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself and your mind and your body and your thoughts and your spirit and your soul, then it's going to be hard to have a healthy relationship with anybody else.
That's real, man. Self-love and recognizing who you are and what you need. I was like closed off for a long time, and I didn't recognize it. But mostly, it came from, and it came from my relationship with my mom, and it came from relationships in my family, and relationships with the other women that I had in my life. And it wasn't until my wife kind of set the example of what it is to just feel love and to love somebody and to kind of demonstrate that, and that took 7 years. It wasn't until actually we got married that I actually kind of started really buying in to like, okay, I was just nervous. I had been cheating on too many times, and I was like, nah, I'm not gonna let this guard down. And then all of a sudden, I get played or whatnot. So it wasn't until I actually got married, and similar to therapy, you just kind of decide and you buy into the idea, saying, okay, here's what we're gonna do. Like, I am committing myself. I want to get better at this. I decided that this is what I'm gonna do, and so now I'm learning to love myself uh, a lot more. And you were mentioning that your wife kind of taught you how to love. I've always been very easy to cry. I'm sensitive as fuck. Like,
I
I'll
was
be the
like that. Yeah, I was like that for a good portion of time. I think a lot of it is just growing up in a very like masculine household and around like very like masculine people.
I
Just in my
envy
life
that.
because I used to be like what everybody used to call me a crybaby when I was a kid until I was maybe like 15, 16. um and just started like holding all the emotions in, and then all you know how it goes, it lashes out in different ways. But it wasn't until the past, year and a half, 2 years that I've really rediscovered like the ability to let tears out of my face.
Hmm.
uh, so it's, I don't know, it's been a process for sure.
That's dope, dude. Allow yourself to feel. Yeah, I envy the fact that people have been able to grow up in a masculine home. Just and there's like a hit or miss to that, right? Like, you might get the wrong example from the previous generations of being way too macho, or
Yeah,
even alcoholic or something else like that. So I'm very grateful for not having the male role models that could have potentially been bad. And the ones that I did have, I learned to take the good and drop the bad from it, right? Just humans, bro. We all make mistakes. You know what I mean? Um, but there is a lot of me that still constantly struggles with finding out how to feel comfortable around other men, to
yeah,
not be the because actually they were talking about Steph Curry being an alpha male, if he was an alpha male or not an alpha male. But he's not the traditional type of alpha male, right? He's
yeah.
not like domineering or anything else like that. But he's still very self confident, and he still runs the team and leads. And I ain't Steph Curry, but like I can relate a lot more to the non um I
Dominant
guess
personality.
exactly. And
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes I'm more comfortable in knowing that knowing my strengths. I am able to empathize with people. I am sensitive. I can get a little bit passionate on certain things, and I try to be as consistent as possible. Like, I rely on those strengths, and some of those might not reflect what traditional masculinity is. But because of that, I feel like I can handle a lot of different shit. I feel like
yeah.
I'm able to withstand and survive a lot of different things. Um,
No, I feel that 100%. Because even myself, like being surrounded by, I feel like a lot of masculine people for a lot of my life is like, bro, I don't got to prove my masculinity. And that's where I think it gets to like healthy masculinity. Like, I just am, I am that, man. Like, I am a masculine person. I feel like, when people walk up to me, like, I am a man, and what that means is different to anybody if I say that. But, for what it means to me is like, I'm comfortable, man. Like, you're not going to get me off my spot. You're not going to push me off my spot. I'm going to come off of my spot if like I feel like it's beneficial as a whole for everybody involved. Um, but at the same time, being able to be like to see perspectives. I feel like it's a quote that I saw one time that was like, the definition of strength is the ability to hold. I don't know if strength is a word, but it's like the definition of strength is the ability to hold two opposing viewpoints at once and still be able to function. Um, and I feel that way about myself a lot of times. Like you were talking about, like being diplomatic in a lot of ways. I can see perspectives. I can see people's perspective. I may not agree with you, but at the end of our conversation, I'm not going to walk away wanting to hurt you. You're a
mhm.
human just like me. You know what I'm saying? You may have a different perspective, but at the end of the day, we're two humans. So I don't know. I feel like that's usually, if someone were to ask me what it means to be a man, to me that a lot of that is it is, to have the desire to protect and provide for the people around you, but also to be empathetic with the people, empathetic and understanding of the people around you, and allow everybody space and room to be themselves, as a man, as a woman, as non-binary, as whatever you identify with. It ain't gonna hurt me and my masculinity because you don't want to identify as a masculine person.
Yeah.
just because I may view you as a man, right? That ain't gonna hurt me. Like, you good, man. Be you. Just be you. Do what you want to do in your life. Feel how you want to feel. Don't infringe on what I am as a person. And we're good.
There's two different things between being masculine and being a man, correct?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what I'm kind of learning about too, where I might not have as masculine features until the end of this quarantine once I start working out, you know what I'm saying? Getting yoked. But
gotta get my boy Charlie on that train.
Push that thing up real quick. Yeah. But yeah, there's differences. There's being masculine and then there's being a man. And I think being a man is more of a state of mind, and being masculine is just physical traits that you might have, you know, or more. I don't know. I don't know. Do you think we'll ever get to the point where we stop even categorizing? Are we just going to become
as gender?
Human? Yeah.
It's hard for me to think, man, because everything to me always comes back to, like, you know, what about the rest of the animal kingdom? You know? And within the animal kingdom, there are species that do identify. You can tell, like, because of, like, the gender roles that they may have, right? And the difference between physiological sex of one, what's the term I'm looking for? One entity to the next, right? There are physical differences between a male and a female across the animal kingdom. But then there are some species that don't have, like, those differences necessarily, and don't necessarily have gender roles, you know? So it's hard for me to say if we'll ever stop identifying as only male or female and just become human. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a whole conversation, another podcast and a half, because it's like really dissecting what that even means to identify in terms of gender and what, like, those roles are within the larger function of society. I feel like if our society keeps on advancing at the rate it is, and gender roles stop being as important to actual the function of society, right? In terms of, when I say gender roles, like, I'm not going to shy away from saying it. Like, the male body is built to be bigger, stronger, and faster in a lot of ways. Not to say that there aren't women that are bigger and stronger and faster than some men, but the male body is built that way specifically in a lot of ways. So that the function of the body is very different in a lot of ways, in terms of what we once were, in terms hunter-gatherers, and, you know, being the nurturer or the provider. So, I mean, the further and further our society gets away from that, I think maybe there's a possibility for us to, like, completely stop gender identifying. But if it doesn't continue to climb in that way, or it even regresses, then I think that gender norms may become a new old thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, straight up.
If that makes
agree.
sense.
No. I think you're right. I think I laughed a little bit because my wife and I took the 23andMe thing, and it was one of those things that, you know, they identify, like, oh, you have the gene with the supreme athletes that are most common. She got it, I didn't. So I'm like,
trash.
Yeah, straight up. I'm over here like, nah, I can beat you. Now it's just like a mind game, right? I just got to outdo her in every kind of thing that we do. And we're almost the same size. So I feel like it's a fair fight. Nah. So, yeah, I feel like you know, with the animal kingdom, it is tricky, right? Because there are physiological differences between certain species, and then male, female in those species. But luckily, we have a brain that keeps on advancing and everything else like that. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I haven't done a study on demographics on if we are getting slimmer, if we're all becoming the same way, if there's more men just becoming, you know, Jimmy Fallon-esque, you know what I mean? Or more Dwayne Johnson-esque, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So... And also, it takes a lot for a man to even consider the idea of not being the dominant, masculine, whatever the fuck that means type thing, right? Like, to even question that, or to say, like, hey, are we ever going to go against or away from the gender roles? Like, that would be us voluntarily, because it's ran by men still, submitting power. And I think a lot of us would still be very uncomfortable with the idea. Like, what do you mean? Are you saying that I'd be a woman? Are you saying that
Yeah.
I would lose our power? You know what I mean? So I think that's a
Yeah, that exists very much still in a lot of ways. Like people afraid. I mean, as much as I don't agree with it, like I understand it. Like I get it. You don't want to lose anything you feel that you've gained, even if you didn't earn it. Necessarily, even if like it was your ancestors that did
hard
the
work
work
for it.
or the
Yeah.
exploitating
Hey,
of, of other people.
but is that because we believe in capitalism? Is that because we've been so bought into capitalism where in order for one person to succeed, the other person has to fail?
oh man, I feel like you're hitting a certain note right now. I'm like, ah, I don't know. Capitalism is a tough one for me because I'm trying to have this discussion with myself. Am I like anti-capitalist, or do I believe in certain aspects of capitalism?
I think there's like, if you don't mind,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
after reading that book, you know what I mean? The evil conjoined twins of racism and capitalism have given a lot of us probably a bitter taste in our mouth. At the same time, we love in the competition and the craft that we do. We appreciate the competition of capitalism that goes
Yeah.
on. But to say that because of the way that capitalism has been put on in America, with all of us in the mix, it's disgusting and almost like you want to dominate that shit as well.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know enough about economic systems to like really give an in-depth breakdown, right?
same.
But I agree with what you're saying. Like in terms of like American capitalism and the society and culture that's bred, I'm not a fan. But like certain capitalist practices, like bro, I'm a hustler, man, and I don't know if
Straight.
that's the capitalist society that has raised me speaking through me, right? But I feel like I'm a hustler, man. I feel like I'm a hard worker. I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna do what I gotta do to make sure everybody's good. And I understand that those are very like capitalist thoughts, and I just haven't like I've been examining it within myself, but I haven't reached a conclusion on how I feel about it yet completely.
I think that there's certain aspects in our life that if we had, I think I was talking to Mikey about this too, if we had certain things that were kind of guaranteed because of our involvement in community, right? Just being able to have a house or a home or shelter, and then medical, just basic kind of income that doesn't take away from our competitiveness. I think that it gives people the ability to find out what they love to do. And when you find out what you love to do and you start doing what you love to do, you're going to have this constant competitiveness to you to say, I want to be the best for myself.
100%. Yeah.
And I don't care what you're doing. I'm not doing this for the money. I do it because I love doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep on trying to get better. So
at that point, you're just competing against yourself, and that's the best
exactly.
competition. Is if you're
Exactly.
competing against yourself, then you're getting the
Renewable
best out of yourself
energy.
every time. Yep, 100%. So yeah, I feel that. I feel that in a lot of ways. Again, like I just don't know enough to make a decision on like what I think the best economic system to operate in is as a country.
And it's hard to do too, because
it's a conversation I'm having with myself though. But go ahead.
I think it's a hard conversation to have, even if you were super knowledgeable on those things. Because I'm not super knowledgeable on those things either. But the fact of the matter is that when has it happened in the world, and where has it happened where it's actually become a success? Because it's a constant fight between one or the other, and then propaganda for one, propaganda against the other, and all this other stuff. So it's hard to see, right? Even if they were to try it in Cuba, like how, right? You got a blockade that goes around it. Even if there was a chance for it to be successful, it wasn't going to be successful. So there's really no way, but maybe there will be in the future. Maybe we're getting to a point where we can start that of just saying, yo, trust me, I'm not going to slow down just because I have a house or a roof over my head. That's not going to slow me down. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm still trying to hustle because that's
motivated.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah. When we get to that point, hopefully we get to that point, but I don't know. Still trying to figure it all out and learn. Interesting conversation. I feel like that's a whole nother conversation we can have, especially with another guest and figuring out like just concept of it. Because I generally don't feel like I know enough about economics and stuff like that. I feel like a Swiss Army knife in a lot of ways. Like I could speak to a lot of different things and be able to hold my own. But when it comes to like really examining those topics, it's a hard one.
We have to find a guest that's in that. Like that is what they
It's
do.
true. We can figure it out. I'm sure. We can wiggle. We can wiggle. We can figure it out. We're
Would
sitting at
you
about. Yeah. Go ahead.
would you hit up what presidential candidates would you talk to on that? Would you be like
I
Andrew
mean, he's not a
Yang,
candidate anymore. It would definitely be Andrew
Bernie
Yang.
Sanders? Yeah,
It
Andrew
would
Yang.
definitely be
Yeah.
Andrew. I mean, Andrew Yang from like in terms of talking about economic practices, he was a candidate that spoke to me the most. I was across the board. Like there's a lot of Democratic candidates that like I could understand. The ones that weren't were like the traditional like I don't know, long time like Democratic members. Damn, bro, we gonna really get into politics. I wasn't fucking with Joe Biden. I wasn't fucking with I wasn't fucking with Kamala Harris. I wasn't fucking with Pete Buttigieg. I wasn't fucking with what's her name from Minnesota? Damn, man, I feel bad. Minnesota. Amy Klobuchar. I wasn't fucking with Amy Klobuchar. But when you want to talk to me about Andrew Yang or Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, and even Tulsi Gabbard, nah, bro. I think all four of them had valid points to a lot of the things that they were talking about. I fuck with Andrew Yang's like economic policy and like things he believes in. Between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, shared social aspects and social like justice aspects and cultural norms. I believe in a lot of those things. And when you're talking about like foreign, god damn
Policy.
Foreign policy. Tulsi Gabbard, in a lot of ways, was a person that I like was like, okay, I think she gets it.
Yeah, man.
So Andrew Yang, you're gonna be on the podcast next week.
Yeah. I think if we tell people that Andrew Yang is coming, maybe they'll tune in even more, which will then create more viewers, which will then make Andrew Yang possibly be like, oh, okay, yeah, let's
look. We're halfway to we're halfway to 1 million right now. So
halfway to 1 million.
I think we're on track. We're sitting at about an hour and more right now. I gotta spend some time with my wife tonight because we're starting a cleanse tomorrow. So that's why I'm drinking a decent amount of wine and gonna eat some pizza tonight because tomorrow for the next 21 days we're in cleanse city.
Are you doing like the water and paprika type stuff, or what are you guys doing?
Nah, ain't nothing like that. We're really just gonna cut out like all the things we view as like not necessarily super positive for our bodies. So like processed food, processed grains, like white rice, white bread. Gonna be very low on sugar intake. Only really going to natural sugar intake. Probably not gonna do a lot of red meat. Mostly like lean protein, like white fish and chicken. A lot of greens. We're really just going to cut out a lot of sugar high carbohydrate foods.
Getting an alkalinic body?
Gotta alkalize. Alkalize, yeah.
We'll just say your body's going to become alkaline.
Yeah.
The pH level.
Yeah, 100%. So I just kind of wanted to wrap it up. Obviously, we've kind of talked about a good portion about masculinity, but also kind of reopening and trying to figure that out again, still as a barber and as a bartender. We got talk a lot about just like our daughters' effects on us as well, our daughters and our significant others. So I think it's a beautiful thing to address. I'd love to get in that conversation about like managing a relationship because I feel like a lot of people could benefit from that as well. Especially when it comes to the conversation of masculinity and surrounding that. But I don't know. Do you have anything you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
Nah, man, I really enjoyed this conversation. I thought it was super dope. And I'm working on being succinct, folks.
I think you're succinct. It's fine.
Thank you.
I think it's a natural energy and we do a good job. If you don't have anything else, man, I guess we can wrap it up. Thank y'all for tuning in. I guess I should say at the end of this so I can edit a YouTube clip. Please hit the subscribe button when you at the end of watching this video, and also feel free to follow us on social media as well as listening on other platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Thanks, y'all.